Hey everybody, this is Teddy Burriss. You're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. A little bit of switch up of what's going on today. Got a little shenanigans going on in North Myrtle Beach, but filling in for Randy is Ms. Susan Fox. Susan, would you wave to the audience so they know that you are the Susan Fox I'm referring to?
Mm-hmm.
The conversation today is with Bobby Davis of Coder Foundry, and crashing the show today, who's supposed to be on vacation, is Randy Wooden from North Myrtle Beach today. So
I'm going to let you have at it, and the waves are calling me, and I need to get. So you guys have a great show. Just wanted to pop in and say hi, and Bobby, have a great time.
Enjoy. All right, Will. Thanks for coming.
Have fun, Randy.
All right, Randy, we'll check in with you later, buddy. Good saying hi. So, Susan, would you introduce yourself to the audience so they know who you are?
Yes. Well, my name is Susan Fox, and I work with Randy Wooden at the Professional Center by Goodwill. Like Randy, my job is to be a career coach to professionals that are in a job search. We help professionals with their resumes and their cover letters and job search strategies, as well as interviewing techniques. So that's what I'm currently doing. But previous to coming to Goodwill, my background was in education. I was a teacher. I was a school administrator. I've taught K-12, taught at a hospital, was the health director for Davidson County Schools for a while. So
cool.
I've done a few different things.
And how long
have you worked for a private investigator?
and how long have you been hanging out at Goodwill now?
Just about 5 years.
Yeah, cool. Good stuff. Yeah, so good. So for those that don't know me, I'm Teddy Burriss. I'm a LinkedIn strategist. My business is Burriss Consulting. We're all about helping business professionals who want to master using LinkedIn as a business tool. We have corporate training programs, one-on-one coaching. We have a mastermind group, private mastermind group, and we have monthly webinar sessions, all focused on using LinkedIn as a business tool. So that's who I am and what I do. Let me introduce our special guest for the day. Bobby, I failed to refer to you as a special guest because that's what you are.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, this is Bobby Davis. Bobby's business is Coder Foundry. The conversation today is going to be around coding school and around the opportunity or the ideas of learning something different, not something new, and adjusting your career journey. Bobby, would you introduce us a little bit more to you and the business a little bit, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Coder Foundry. We're probably the best and the largest boot camp in North Carolina. We believe we're the most strenuous boot camp in the United States. And so what we do is we're a little bit different than pure education, where a lot of times you come in and you say, I want to learn this. And we're more of, we want to teach you something to get a job. So our focus is outcomes and not necessarily education. Doesn't mean we don't teach you stuff. It just means that we create our curriculum to line up with what businesses are looking for instead of just teaching curriculum. And then you kind of figure that out on the back end. So we train you how to code. We also train you how to get a job, which is, there's two parts to getting a job. One is acquiring skills. The other one is selling yourself into the organization. So we try to do both of those things. And there's a lot that goes into that. And then I wrote the book, Breaking the Code, to tell people what I think the 5 essential steps are to finding a job, whether that's in coding or anything else. Breaking the Code is kind of how you do that.
Yeah, cool. And Breaking the Code on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon. You can get it everywhere, actually. And it's going to be released in 24 countries starting next month. Cool. So it's a pretty cool book, and we're excited about it.
And you got a YouTube channel. What's the name of the YouTube channel, Bobby?
So you can find us on YouTube, Coder Foundry on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter, and you can just look up Coder Foundry. We do a live show every Tuesday and Thursday on Coder Foundry, and we just try to educate people on learning how to code and how to break in. Not necessarily coming to our boot camp, but in general. And that's what our YouTube focus is to give you. We're not trying to sell you on our school necessarily, but more about how do I do this? And so I want to provide a resource to help people achieve the dreams that they're looking into.
Yeah.
So that's what we try to do every Tuesday and Thursday at noon.
Yeah. Good stuff. Noon Eastern Standard
Yeah,
Time.
noon Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
From the tech capital of the world, Kernersville, North Carolina. So.
All right with you, buddy. All right with you. So, so good stuff, Javi. And so let's just chat a little bit about some of the ideas. And again, I want people to use these ideas and see how they apply to themselves. And as Bobby said, you know, maybe it's not his coding school, and maybe it's not even coding school. Maybe it's something else. Maybe there's another boot camp out there for something different. You know, Dust Bunny boot camp. You know,
right? Yeah,
you want to be a professional Dust Bunny, and so. You know, but, you know, talk a little bit about why coding is growing so fast and coding schools that are so important.
So what I believe firmly, and over the last, in my career since the early 90s, I've been coding, and what I've lived through, and believe it or not, the invention of the internet, which was, I know Al Gore said he did it before, but really from the application perspective, that was only 1997. I can remember when we made our first web application in 97. And what I realized in those, when we have these major shifts in technology, it creates vast opportunities. And you can look at, since 97, we've had companies like Facebook, Google, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all those companies came after this revolution. And they all have one thing very in common, is that they were based on coding. And when you look at Mark Zuckerberg, and you look at him being a multi-billionaire, whether you think about Mark Zuckerberg or not, like him, hate him, love him, it doesn't really matter. The guy knew how to code, and he created a website to get dates. That was his big idea, and that turned into one of the largest corporations on the face of the planet after that. And so what I've come to grips with is coding is what I call the economic mobilizer of our time. In other words, if you know how to code, you can work in any town in America, and you can also work in practically any industry in America, needs software developers. And so, and because it's a skill-based industry, a lot of the other assumptions we make about our society in general, like I can't work there because I don't look this way, or I don't speak this way, or don't do that. You can walk into any software development shop in America, and you can see they're from all over the world, like all over the world, from India to China to, you know, Belize, Europe. And so coding is everywhere. And so if you want to participate in this kind of revolution, which is still ongoing, I think you need to acquire these skills and jump in now, because they're saying the fastest growing job in America is web development still. Of all jobs, there's nothing more that grows faster than this. And if you think about it, because of the pandemic, software integrations are only going to increase. And we're on the verge of another shift, Teddy. And I think that the shift is going to be from our computers that we see today to wearables and to what we call AR. And when those shifts happen, new Facebooks will be invented, new Twitters will be invented, new things. And that I believe that there's another multi-billionaire walking around right now that doesn't know it yet, but they're going to invent the next thing that we didn't know we needed, but we had to have. And they'll suddenly be, you know, in front of Congress giving like, so like that. But like, you know, I think that's going to happen to somebody, and it's because they know how to code. And I want to give that opportunity to everyone. The other thing that I think is very interesting about coding, think about professional athletes. Professional athletes can get to the very top of our society and make the most enormous amounts of money. But if you're an under average basketball player, or you weren't born tall, you're relegated to, like, you're playing in a church league or a Y league somewhere, making nothing, just doing it on your own. If you're an average coder, and maybe not even a great one, what does that look like for the average coder after 3 years of experience? It looks like $100,000 a 401k with a match. That's a pretty good deal. Yeah. And you also have this ceiling to where, you know, if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, he makes more money than LeBron James. I mean, like, so like there's this wide, where if I'm a failure at it, I still make a really nice living. And if I'm fantastic at it, you know, I can make more money than anyone else in our society. And I think that is the attraction to it. But you do have to acquire the skills. And that's the thing. It's the good thing, and the bad thing is that not everyone can do this, but more people can than you think.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I also foresee,
Yeah.
and not enough details yet, but I foresee that the stuff that we will be using in 2029 will be slightly different than the stuff that we're using today. And every time we talk about new stuff, there's coding involved.
Right.
Mhm.
And I can remember watching a show on TV, and this guy by the name of Steve Jobs walked down on the stage, and he held up a device that looked like this, and he says, "Everyone's going to have one of these in their pocket." And I remember watching it as a coder, like, man, ain't nobody going to carry that around. That's not going to happen. And that was the second shift we saw after the web, was the introduction of the mobile device, and that spawned thousands of multi-millionaire companies that we never thought were ever going to be invented. And now we're on the verge of that next shift. We're going to do something else. It's probably in our glasses when we wear them, or it's will be in the screens of our cars, because we won't have to drive them anymore by 2029.
Yeah, I'm with you. And in that Unreal, I mean, there's coders out there who are writing code for refrigerators.
Yes.
They're writing codes for washing machines.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything's connected.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing too, and that is the more we code, the more we have to code to protect the code.
Right.
You know, example, what just happened, you know, it's January 2nd. I think it was on January 1st, you know, in it was a national meat packing company just got hit with ransomware.
Yeah.
And so
it's June 2nd, not January 2nd, but yeah,
June 2nd. Yeah. I got to clean my glasses. Yeah, it's June 2nd. Yeah. So yeah, the more we do, the more we want to do, the more we want to do, the more we'll do. And so it's never ending. So
I think national labor statistics is, I think they're projecting 45% year-over-year growth for software developers every year. So like, if you look at that, that's just like, there's not enough people to take these roles. In fact, if you look at now, the language we teach is .NET. That is right now have between 14 to 15,000 openings in the US right now today. If you went on Indeed and looked and typed in .NET developer, you're going to see 14 to 15,000 openings. And that's just one small part of every language that's being coded in America. It's mind-boggling how much work there is out there to do.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff. So, and the salary ranges in that space start out okay, quickly move to decent, and then beyond that.
Yeah, so we call it at Coder Foundry is the road to 100K. So everyone, if you make 100K in the US, that's pretty good, unless you're living somewhere maybe in New York, Manhattan, or you're in the Bay Area in San Francisco. But like here in North Carolina, that's really good. I mean, like you can live very nicely doing that. And so what we see is there is kind of a minimum wage in North Carolina for coders is right around 40 to 50K coming out. But once you have 3 to 5 years of experience as a .NET developer, that's north of 100 easy every day. And with the cost of living here in North Carolina and most of the other states, except for the ones on the extreme coast like New York and LA, that's a very, very nice living. The other thing that COVID's introduced is remote. And so let's say that you want to work for a Bay Area company like Facebook. Now you can do that from here. And and so that's another advantage to people living in smaller towns in America, that you can now work remote. That's typically for someone that's 3 to 5 years, got more experience, not for someone just starting out. So you're looking at 100K within 3 to 5 years easily as a software developer.
Yeah. So how does someone start this journey? How do they break into this journey?
Yeah. So I think the first step you got to do is obviously acquire education. It is a skill-based industry, and you need to learn something. And so you need to learn how to code. And so like, that's where Coder Foundry comes in. We're going to be an education facility to teach you how to code. And then what we try to do is line up what we teach with what businesses are actually hiring for. So what I tell every prospective person on our YouTube channel or things like this is like, hey, ask yourself this question: what do I want to build? So I want to build a mobile site. I want to build a website. I want to build a desktop app. I want to build something that runs on a refrigerator. All of those have different ways of doing that. And once you figure that out, then now you can focus your learning in on the things I need to learn to, say, build websites. We teach you how to build websites. So we picked the .NET stack, which is supported by Microsoft. And so that allows you to work at enterprise companies building web applications. And we teach you the thing that you need to know. So the first thing you need to know is figure out how to learn. The cool thing, Teddy, is with like free code camp, you can learn for free. You can go to a community college, you can go to 4-year CS school, and you can go to somewhere like Coder Foundry if you want to. But however you do that, you need to acquire skills and then build projects on those skills so that you can show that project during the interview process.
Yeah. And fact is, as we start learning, and I would wager both of you can relate to this as well.
Yeah.
My very first, I got one. My very first macaroni artwork looked pathetic.
Right.
But my third and fourth macaroni artwork looked pretty good. Now, the same thing, and I've done software development. I've built websites, and I've done a little teeny bit of coding, Bobby, a little teeny bit.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started, it was pathetic. But then the more I practiced and the more I learned, and the more I learned from other people, man, it just got easier and easier. Now for me, that kind of work in a very basic perspective isn't even work.
Mm-hmm.
You get to the point where you learn how to do it. It's not work anymore. It's art.
Yeah, exactly.
No?
And I do think I have fun coding, and I think it's a lot of fun. What I tell people when they start on this journey is, if you like to jog, this may not be the career for you. So and I make that because we spend a lot of time in a cube, wearing headphones, coding away most of the day and sometimes at night. There is some long hours involved in this in the very beginning. Work-life balance is possible, but a lot of times, a lot of these things just take a lot of seat time to build your skills up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the sacrifice you make, because later on in your career, it becomes a lot easier. But I find it very fun and engaging, and I think it's a fantastic thing to do. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I remember in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was doing some coding work, I remember the joy of, I'd hammer through, and I'd get done, I'd press the button and make that thing do what it needed to do. And it was pretty exhilarating to see your work achieve the goal it was set out to achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's cool what the coder is. Imagine if you're Taylor Swift and you walk into a Starbucks. There could be 4 or 5 people in there listening to your music, and you're like, man, that's kind of cool. They're listening to what I made. But what if you're a coder and you work on, say, Twitter? You could walk into any Starbucks in the world or any grocery store, and everybody's using it. And so that creative fulfillment with coding can't be replaced in any other career, really, except for music and entertainment. And they watch your movies, you listen to your music. But man, I can remember I wrote a piece of fraud software that ran at banks. And I can remember walking in a bank to cash a check a while back. This is several years ago when we still wrote checks. And this thing would check software. And I can remember at the bank, and I looked over there and they were using it. And there was the little child in me wanted to say, I wrote that, right? But I knew they wouldn't believe me. So, but I just had to walk out and go, man, they were using it. So that's kind of cool. So I find those kind of rewarding, above pay is kind of rewarding. So when you make a website and you put it out there, even us veteran coders, we go and look at our websites we make. We're like, man, look what I did. It's kind of like showing your mom your artwork when you're 5.
Macaroni artwork, buddy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, this is good. Susan, anybody come up with any questions yet?
I don't see any here, but I have a question for Bobby.
Sure.
Okay.
The educator in me keeps wondering, this all sounds great. How do you do it? How do you make it happen? What does your curriculum look like? How do you teach? I know it's online.
Mm-hmm.
How does this all happen?
So at Coder Foundry, we do in-person, what we call in-person virtual, which means that you're on a Zoom call like this or something for 8 hours a day. We have our instructor team that's with our students, and typically it's a very small class, 25 to 30, and we stay with them 40 hours per week.
Oh.
So we believe in the concept of immersion learning. So if you went to Mexico and you had to learn Spanish and you took a translator with you, and the translator said, okay, from here on out, you can only speak Spanish, but when you get stuck, I'll tell you what to say. you would probably learn Spanish in 90 days because you have to eat, you have to order food, you do those things, and it's just immersion. And we do the same thing in coding and say, from here on out, we're going to build projects that resonate with employers. At Coder Foundry, we have the thing that says we don't do what's easy, we do what's necessary. So if you do what's necessary to get the job, that's what we teach. And it's harder than most boot camps, but it leads to employment. So we build projects that resonate with employers, and we show those projects during the interview process.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Pretty simple, but I think it's a lot of hard work, but I think it's pretty simple what we do.
Right.
So that plays off the other thing, and that, this whole transition of, how do you get started? Zero to success, zero to hero. What I heard you say is that whole immersion thing. Speak to that a little bit more, Bobby.
So immersion is making sure that you only do one thing. So a lot of problems that we have with college is you go to college to learn computer science, you go to college to learn, accounting. You spend 80% of your time doing other coursework to get that full rounded degree. We don't do that. We're focused on one skill and one skill only, and we're going to show you how to build projects that you can show an employer. Now, our projects are kind of special. So we build something called a bug tracker. Now, bug tracker is a piece of software that companies use to track software defects or enhancements. Every single company has one of these. So we build one as well, so that when you walk into an interview, the employer, the hiring manager, knows exactly what you built. Yeah. And we get a lot of pushback on this sometimes because someone says, I want to build my passion project. The problem with passion projects are that when you show it to an employer, they may not understand what it's supposed to do. And so, for example, real world scenario, one guy went to an interview and he says, okay, I made Tinder for rock climbers. And the guy said, I don't know what Tinder is. Like, why would I do that? And he judged the project because he didn't understand it, thought it must be dumb. Then another guy follows up with that from our school, and he shows them a bug tracker. The bug tracker guy gets hired because instantly he go, oh, I know what that is. That's cool. How did you solve that? And so what we want to do is make something they resonate with. It's like seeing a sports fan on the street that's wearing a Cubs hat and you're a Cubs fan. Immediately you have a connection. You already know, like, hey, did you watch the game last night? And you could talk about sports, or you can, talk about, you have a common thing to talk about. And that's what we want to take interviews from question and answer to conversations about common things. And when you build a relationship or rapport with somebody, it's easier for them to hire you because people always hire people they like. They just do. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Now, if he would have taken that, the guy with the Tinder for rock climbers would have went to, like Dick's Sporting Good or something like that, that might have resonated.
It might have. Yeah.
Maybe.
Exactly. But we want to make one that works for every possible scenario. And so I guarantee if you've interviewed at Dick's Sporting Goods, they have a bug tracker. I guarantee it. And they're like, oh, that's cool. We're using Jira for ours. So how did you handle this? And so I think that makes it a whole lot easier for them to resonate with the hiring manager.
Yeah, cool.
Bobby, we have a question.
Sure.
Go ahead, Susan.
From Donald, who wants to know how to get young people interested and hooked on coding. How do you get this work option in front of them?
Okay. I do think that's important that when we talk to people, and especially for if you're from an underserved population, you could be a woman, you could be a person of color. A lot of people come to us like, I didn't know I could do that, or it's not really done that. So I would like to see high schools teach this more. But in general, I think what we can do is expose them to what the things they're trying to do. So what I always tell a kid is, hey, why don't you think about this? Instead of being a consumer of technology, why don't you investigate how Twitter works, or how Facebook works, or how some of these things that you like to do works, and then introduce some coding that way. And so you just have to like put it in, I think, in grade school. But we do have a lot of 18-year-olds straight out of high school only go to our boot camp and get a job. We've had several, but before, and I had a great story of a kid that went to a place. His first job was around $65K. And he walked into the place, and the guy says, okay, man, you're the rookie. you're buying the beer tonight for the whole staff because you're on here. And he goes,
Good.
I can't buy beer. I'm 19.
Yeah.
and the guys are like, what in the world? Like, and so there's a very kind of, we just got to get them early and young. But even if you're 25 or 26 and you come to this late, absolutely, people say, am I too old? I'm 27. I'm like, life isn't over at 27, man. You can do this at any stage of life that you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you need a certain aptitude? Oh, excuse me.
No, go ahead.
I think so. I think one of the things we look at when we test in is looking at how you think. And so what we look for are people that solve problems, and they take abstract concepts and apply it to the thing that they're looking at right now. There's some problem solvers that look at every problem as unique and different, and they solve it over and again. So I look at it this way. If I taught you how to change a tire on a car, and then I said, all right, look at this plane propeller. You think you could put that on with the book? And they're like, well, it has 4 bolts. It turns. I think I could figure that out. There's a wiring harness. And so then they would start on where they would start with what they know and then try to solve the problems of that. But then there's the other half of the population to go, that's a car, that's a plane. They are completely different. I don't think I could do that. Yeah. And so we're looking for people that can take abstract concepts and apply it to concrete things. And part of the population, more than you think that way, even though you may see them as a mechanic or a plumber or they're working in landscaping. Those kind of complex problem solvings are apparent in all of those. We see a lot of music people come in because they can read music. And, and if you think about the act of playing music is like, just hand me the sheet of music, I can play it.
Yeah.
It's a different problem, but I put the same technique to it. And so those types of people succeed very well. Cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and let me do my half break because we're gonna get ready to get into some other conversations. So everybody, thanks for joining us. This is Teddy Burriss with my assistant co-host today, Susan Fox, filling in for Randy Wooden, as Randy is off playing in the sand. And our special guest today is Bobby Davis. The conversations about coding schools and boot camps and learning a new craft or starting, maybe even starting a new craft, because coding is so vital to our economy, our way of life today. So, so thanks everybody for joining us. So, Susan, any other questions you have queued up right now?
Donald wrote in and he says that a lot of third stage people who've slipped into forced retirement, that gives them an exciting fulfillment each day other than golf and pickleball.
Pickleball.
So I guess he's saying this would be a fun thing to do. Yeah, if you're retired. I don't know.
Also, I saw here Mike Brock answer a question here in QA. If you want to read that, it's a little bit lengthy. Do you see the QA button down there?
Yeah, it's pretty. So Bob.
I'll answer it. Just read it up.
Okay, sure. So he says, Bobby, I run a small company and I'm beginning a job search, several years of leadership and management. However, it seems that almost every company I review or talk with wants a leader who's very familiar with many types of programs. I'm familiar with some, but in a leadership role, I'm passed over because of it. What would you suggest I look at and have a working knowledge of in terms of programs? Example, SAS, SAP, that sort of
so I think everyone's using either Salesforce or SAP. I think that's really important. I want to give you something a little bit more broad-based, Mike, that you could do in a leadership role where you could become familiar with. I want you to start looking at the term DevOps, Azure, and AWS. I think those are the 3 things that from a leadership perspective that you become a little bit more familiar with. And you don't have to know how to make these things or how to publish code, but you can understand like how that process works, because everyone is trying to move their business to the cloud. And I think those types of areas would be great, but also learning something like Salesforce is good. Everyone's using Salesforce or SAP or any of those kind of ERP systems is something you also could look into, but I would look at AWS, Azure, and DevOps. Yeah. That's the other thing I would look into.
Yeah. So, and that ties to a question in some context, what Michael asked, and that is, what skills would you consider essential for coding? It's really, the ability to look at things a little bit differently than that's a car and that's an airplane. Any other adds to that? What skills are essential for coding?
So we look at pattern matching. So like when you look at our quiz to get in, and you can go to coderfoundry.com/quiz, and you can take our developer quiz whether you come to coding bootcamp or not. And it tests for these ways of thinking. We look at pattern matching, pattern substitution. And so that is the common skill for coders, because not everything is done exactly the same way. But we have a saying here at Cortex, our consulting side, is every web page is square. In other words, it's the shape of the monitor. Like, and they all behave kind of the same way. We're doing something different from a business perspective, but like the road to get there is always kind of the same. And when you can start seeing those patterns, it allows you to think in a way that programs work. And I think that is the primary skill we test for coming in, to see if you can do pattern matching.
Got it.
So example of pattern match would be like 1, 3, 5, and 7. What's the next number in the sequence? And if you looked at that, you're like, okay, that's 9, because it's odd numbers. Things like that is a very simple one, but we have some more complex ones we look at. So
Yeah. I fail miserably at those tests, Bobby. I thought the answer was 9 though. So.
Right.
so as someone is going down this journey of going to becoming a coder or any other boot camp to figure out some new skill, where's the best place for them to get started looking for that job? Is it Indeed, Monster, Career Builder, Ladder, or is there something more practical?
So there is something that you're very familiar with that I think as a coder, and probably much any job searcher in the professional area, is that you've got to have a LinkedIn account. Like if you don't have a LinkedIn account, you're not visible to the world. Now in coding, we also have this very prevalent industry of recruiters. And so most coding jobs are filled through recruiters. Like even though we see job postings on Indeed, those postings are typically by placement companies like a Tech Systems here in Greensboro, Modus, CRG. Those types of companies place people into jobs. Now, what's cool about coding is once you have a 3 to 5 year career going, you really do have an agent at that point, a lot like a professional athlete, where you can literally call someone on the phone and say, hey, I'm kind of looking, do you think, is there anything available, kind of what's out there for me? And they'll do the hard work of finding things, finding opportunities, and then getting you to an interview. And I think that, so building a LinkedIn presence, I think, and what we do at the Coder Foundry is, I think if you're going to be in the coding world, you should also write articles. And it's like, it's not to be an author, but we had an individual that wrote, and we make everyone write 30 blog articles at Coder Foundry, but just recently had an individual that wrote these articles. He got an interview because the hiring manager read his article on something. And when they were in an interview, he did his tech lead like this and goes, hey, this kid writes about code. So, it's like, and he got the job, and so I think that's the other thing you can do is raise your social awareness with Twitter, LinkedIn specifically, maybe write some blog articles on the topic of your choice. Let's say that you don't want to be a coder, you want to be an accountant. I would write about, job costing. I would write about, matching, 4-way match or 3-way match, those kind of things, and write about those types of things in order to present yourself as more knowledgeable than most.
Yeah. When you can write about the topic that you want to do, then you are definitely presenting yourself as someone differently than they can just simply do it. Yeah, I'm with you. So, and there are a lot, and then in Central North Carolina, where the three of us hang out, there are lots of staffing firms that focus on technology, and I know many of them. So if you're looking for a conversation with a recruiter in that space, don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to help you. So it's good stuff. Susan, anything else pop up?
Nope.
All right. So if you have any questions, drop them in here. We're happy to I'll bring them up and engage with you on ideas about, coding schools and boot camps. So Bobby, when so someone goes through coding school, they start heading down this journey, they get a recruiter to help them find a job. How do they keep growing? How do they keep growing?
Yeah, so they've got a recruiter. Let's talk about a little bit like once you get to an interview process too. Let's do that. So a lot of times a recruiter can get you all the way to an interview, and I would say the hardest part of breaking into coding is the tech interview. So like they're usually typically very difficult. A lot of times they ask you questions they don't even use. A lot of times the questions aren't fair. They ask you about things that they don't do for a living. I remember one of my tech leads interviewed a candidate coming into our company here for a coding job, and he asked him about, and this is a technical term, but he asked him about task parallel library, which is like parallel programming. I'm like, why'd you ask him about that? We don't do that here. And he goes, I just want to see if he knew it. I'm like, well, he's never going to do that. like that's not what we do. Like we write websites. So how do you get around this? So a lot of times in a tech interview, it's what I call code trivia, which means that they'll ask you a bunch of random questions about whatever. This could also happen in accounting. It could also happen in a lot of other tech trades. Here's how you beat that. And you know this, Teddy, in your former life, we both ran consulting companies, and we would walk in with a presentation of some sort. If they wanted to ask us like, hey, can you do this? We would start showing them the stuff we did. If you're an artist, they say, can you paint? And they would show paintings. For some reason, coders will walk in without showing any code at all. And so like you have to have a sales artifact. We call that a portfolio. And what I think you should do, and this is how I interview all the time when I'm trying to win things, is when someone asks you a technical question, you answer that with proof of work. Oh, you want to know how MVC is? A very technical question. Well, let me show you an MVC site that I built, instead of answering academically. And I think you can take code trivia questions and turn those into demos, sales presentations, and then you have a infinite better chance of winning that interview. And I think that's what you got to do is demo. I don't care what job you're interviewing for, is demo stuff. If you want to win a sales job, show them what you did, your sales, your call sheets, or whatever it is, the metrics, how you tracked it. Show them the closes, show them your emails, show them everything that you did, and you can win that way.
Yeah.
Bobby, I have a question.
Sure.
I was looking at some of your videos on your YouTube channel.
Okay, cool.
And one of the videos I looked at was the 5 things you need to have in your portfolio when you go to present, including the bug tracker.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So we think there's 5 things that you need on your portfolio. Number 1, it should have a call to action at the top. We call these a CTA. And basically it's a picture of you in a candid action shot. Maybe you're at a coffee shop, and you're like looking off and you're drinking some coffee like that, but beside it is hire me or contact me. Most people, when they make a portfolio site, they don't think about the CTA in a website like a conversion. And you need to think of it that way. That links to a contact form. And then there should be an easy way to get in contact with you. Second thing is, I think you need to have your skill section laid out. What do I do? What do I work with? And then you take those skills and then you show 5 mini projects. These are like smaller projects. One we recommend right now is a mortgage calculator, and allow them to put in their mortgage in there and it spits out a number. The reason we do things like that is because everyone has a car payment or mortgage payment, and they can validate it. And when you show things that work, they think you work really well, regardless of how hard that project is. If it's working and it does something useful, and then you have your large enterprise project like the bug tracker. And if you do your skill section, your contact, your CDAs, you got your 5 mini projects, you got some larger projects there, and a contact form, that's a fantastic portfolio site. And those are the kind of the 5 things you need on there.
Yeah. The worst thing you want to say to any recruiter who's trying to hire you, ask you a question about, did you do something? Well, I think I did that a few years ago.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So good stuff. So how about the conversation? How about this? How do you stay focused on growing professionally in this space? How do you stay, what's the word I look like? Committed to your craft?
That's it. That's what we say too.
To become a rock star.
Yeah, a rock star. Now, here's the thing about rock stars. So there's a thing in there called a 10x coder. I think it's like it's been looked down upon in the term, and I've kind of like rephrased what I think a 10x coder is. A 10x coder in like tech Twitter is someone who knows like 35 languages and they're super technically smart. Typically, these types of people are also hard to work with. They're very difficult. And so here's what I want you to do in any career that you're in. If you go to work and you become what I call a kingdom builder, which means that you consume knowledge and you hold knowledge like this with both hands, and people must come to you and pay penance to the king to get some kind of extract knowledge out of you. I want you to flip that scenario and you become a knowledge sharer. Everything you know, you give that away, you tell everyone, you work well with others. And to be a true rock star, if you can code technically and then be able to tell the business, the CTO, the CEO, and those kind of people what they're trying to achieve with technology in layman's terms without being condescending and thinking you're dumb. A lot of coders make mistakes when they work with sales. They don't like the salespeople because they don't understand technology, and they always fight like this. Instead, the coder should have empathy towards what this guy's trying to do or lady's trying to do. They're just trying to sell something, man. And so, like, tell me what your problems are, and then explain to them how the technology is going to solve their problems. When you can do that, suddenly you find yourself on a conference stage at a Microsoft event or something like that, and you're explaining to the world why this technology matters to them. And I think that is the true rock stars in our industry that can communicate complex things at a very business level that everyone can understand.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. The more you give it away,
the more they buy
rewards
it.
You'll get.
We have a question.
Sure.
From Donald.
Okay.
Donald wants to know, what does a lifestyle for a coder look like? You've kind of addressed this a little bit early on. What does a lifestyle for a coder look like? What would a work week look like? Group interaction? What other skills should they be working on?
So I think the lifestyle looks like you typically, especially early on, you're in cube land, you're wearing headphones, you're trying to code 40 hours a week. Those are like 4 to 5 hour pursuits that you need to get up and go to the bathroom and do another 4 or 5 hours. That's kind of what it looks like in the very beginning. But as you learn more about the business that you're working at, the more things, then you get out and you start a meeting with the business stakeholders. That's where you really need to pick your skills up. In other words, like, be transparent about how long it's going to take. Be empathetic towards their problems, not necessarily your problems. Your problems shouldn't be theirs. Your problems are like, how do I solve this technically? They're trying to figure out how do we keep the business running. And I think those are important things you need to understand. So communication skills, always giving an answer to, like, how long is this going to take? Give your best guess for that. And then always empathize with what the other side of the business is doing and being easy to work with and sharing knowledge. I think those are the big skills, in addition to just staying up to date on like what you're committed to your craft is, what your craft is, which is building software.
Right.
So
okay.
So good stuff.
Hope that helps, Donald.
Thanks. So Bobby, package this up a little bit. Take and 3 or 4 bullet points that you think are important to share with everybody in this context of coding school and become a coder. Package it up in this quick little summary for me.
So I think number one, acquire skills, whether that's at Coder Foundry Bootcamp or you're learning online or going to college or whatever. And once you acquire skills, specialize in what you want to build. That could be websites, could be mobile sites, whatever, and make sure that your education lines up with that goal. And then work with a recruiter to find you opportunities. And then once you have that recruiter, make sure you have a demoable portfolio with projects that you can demo. And then you turn every interview question into a demo opportunity. So if they ask you something technical, you show the technical answer with your demo. And then finally, I think being the rock star is being a knowledge sharer. Share your knowledge on LinkedIn, Twitter, share it with your teammates. And then that helps you stay committed to your craft. And if you stay committed to your craft, you always have a job and always continually learn something new and continually push yourself to learn things new.
Yeah, I like that, being committed to your craft.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to be that rock star,
right,
you can't be waffling or back and forth about what it is I want to do. And right. If it's not, and if it's not for you, you make that decision and move on and go do something else that you want to be committed to. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So good stuff. So Susan, anything else pop up?
Not really. Not that we haven't discussed already.
In the Q&A, Perry says, I'm a 30-year IT guy, but spent the first 5 or 10 years in programming in the old stuff, C, Unix, Linux, and wanted to get back into something into coding, a little less stressful. But he's got a gig he's working on, but when that gig's up, should he be learning? Should I be learning to be the most marketable? What should I be learning? What should I be learning?
Yeah. So Perry, what you should be learning right now, I think, is figure out, number one, if you're using C, I'm assuming that you're going to work on like internal systems or whatever, but figure out what you want to build. And then if you want to build websites, I would learn C# at this point. And it would probably be more applicable to what you're doing. The cool thing about C# is you can use it for web, you can use it for mobile, you can use it for desktop. Only what you're doing with C could be low level things like machines or diagnostic type applications. So if you want to like broaden your horizons, I would say look into web dev and learn C# at this point. If you want to stay in the language that you know, like C, that's applicable, but you also could then turn around and look at something like Rust, and Rust would be more applicable today and being more used or has a longer life cycle than maybe just pure C. And then you could look at those couple of things. But if you wanted to build websites, which give you a broader career, I would learn ASP.NET with C#.
Yeah. Years past, Bobby, I learned to do development in what was called 4GL. And it was basically block building, and by the way, one of the most important things I learned doing that and was if then else statements.
Yeah.
And the value to me was if then else was not so much for coding, but for business and even life. If then else.
Right.
It applies to everything in life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was pretty rewarding.
You got to have there's always a plan A. And then there's always a plan B, but you always got to get to that C. That's probably where you're going to be. So like, so like, if I win the lottery, then, I'm going to do this. Else I'm going to get another job. So like, so I think that that's what we look for is that logic, how we approach life is very well played out in what you do in your everyday life.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, big time. So well, good stuff. So, Bobby, how can people learn more about Coder Foundry, and where do you want to point them to?
You just go to coderfoundry.com, and I just noticed Mike here is asking how much our training is. If you go to coderfoundry.com, you can look at all of the pricing on there. The reason I don't give pricing live is because I don't know when this is going to be seen in the future. So go look there right now, and you can see kind of what it costs to get into Coder Foundry. We have 2 programs. We have our flagship virtual boot camp. It's more expensive. But there's teachers with you 40 hours a day. And then we also have learn.coderfoundry.com, which is our self-paced training course. So we have it either way, but just go to coderfoundry.com. You can call in, we'll ask you questions. You can take our developer quiz if you're not sure if it's for you, and this will help you. All of those links are on coderfoundry.com.
Yeah. And what's the 5 steps to a software job? What is that site?
Okay. So I got a book if you want to read it.
Okay.
So, selfless plug. Breaking the code, you can find it anywhere. But like basically the 5 steps are acquire knowledge, learn the right stack. So that means that pick what you want to do for a website. And then once you pick a website, say I want to build websites, there's stacks associated with that. Learn that. Then you want to choose the right school if you're going to go the school route. And from there, you need to figure out, am I going to build projects at the end of my learning? Because I'm going to show those projects when I interview, and then I'm going to build a portfolio. It's going to be the thing that I need. And then I'm going to learn how to talk about my code in an interview situation. And then I'm going to work with recruiters to be able to help me get more opportunities. So that's kind of the 5 basic steps in there, but it's all laid out in Breaking the Code if you want to pick it up on Amazon or any major outlet. So it's kind of cool.
Cool. And you do a live YouTube show on Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yeah.
At noon.
Yeah, we do. Very similar to this. We, a lot of questions. We answer questions about anything. We talk about coding mostly, but sometimes they want to know what I think about various Star Wars movies. I'll try to answer that. So but there's a lot of things that, but it's all centered around breaking into software development. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 noon on YouTube.
Cool, cool. And they can go to your YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell for alerts, and
smash that like button. Yeah.
smash that like, yeah. I'm with you, buddy. I'm with you. So, well, good stuff. Good stuff. So I appreciate you coming on, Bobby. Thanks for sharing the ideas. So,
thank you.
Susan, this is the part where you and I come up with stories. And if you're not ready for a story, I am, and then I can hand it back to you. Or if you're ready, I'll let you tell a story.
I have a story.
All right, go with it.
Well, my story is that many, many years ago, when I worked for a private investigative firm, we had a problem. And our problem was that we did criminal background investigations for new hires.
Is that where you and I met? No, I'm joking.
I was running your background, Teddy. I had a few questions. But anyway, a lot of people that worked there were former police officers, but some of us were not. And reading the criminal background records were very, very cumbersome, very difficult. And Bobby and his company at Cortex, they wrote a program for us that made pulling up those criminal records so much easier. It was easier, it was faster, it was accurate, and it was life-changing. Bobby, you talk about, whether or not, seeing people use your program.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I can't tell you, there's no way you ever knew what joy your program brought to those of us that worked there and had to run those criminal records. And your program made it so much easier. Your coding, I don't know what you did. I don't know what magic you performed, but it was beautiful. And it made everyone's life so much better.
Well, I appreciate the plug there. Thank you. That's appreciate it. Thank you.
And that comes from my heart. Truly life-changing. Thank you. And that's my story.
Did you guys have a Bobby Davis shrine in the break room?
They should have one. They should have one.
So yeah, good. And that's Bobby, you talked about that. If you do it right, people are very, very appreciative of what you create for them.
Yeah, sure.
1998, I went to work for an organization in New Jersey, and I had written a warehouse management system, and it did everything from receipts to blending to shipment and everything except for invoicing. And so the shipping document got put in a FedEx package at the end of every day and sent up to New Jersey. It was, had offices all over the country, and every night 15 FedEx packages got shipped to New Jersey, and every next morning the accounts receivable department had to enter in invoices from the shipping documents, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds every day, sometimes thousands a day. And so they came to me and said, look, you wrote a great warehouse management system, but the problem is it dies at shipment, and we got to go and do manual work and get these invoices entered in. And so they said, give us an idea what you can do to automate that process. So I did some research and discovered that there needed to be a change to their accounting system, and I could write code to using an API back in those days. I think we still use APIs today. And I could write code that would put the invoices straight into the system from the shipping document. The owner of the company said there's no way in the world. I said, by the way, I can do this in about 5 months. And based on the research that me, the CFO, and the business consultant did, we thought we would save the company somewhere close to $500,000 a year just in accounts receivable costs. The owner of the company said, I don't believe you can do it. And the business partner, the CFO, myself, and another person involved in the project said, we can write that code and we can make it happen. He looked at me, he says, I'll bet you can. I said, well, write a number down, how much you want to bet, and and let's see if we can do it.
Yeah.
And we never really officially bet, but he wrote a number down, he gave it to the CFO. 5 months later, at the height of their shipping season, the system was working. Shipping documents were automatically becoming invoices, cut AR staff and cut AR significantly. the end of the year, the business owner came to me and he gave me a bonus. And he pulled up the piece of paper where he wrote down the number and gave it to the CFO. And he said, I was going to bet you this amount of money. And it wasn't peanuts. And he handed me a check, handed me a bonus check.
Nice.
And my point of sharing that story is I knew I could do it. I believed in what I was getting ready to do. I had my plan in place and I was willing to be committed to my craft. And I pulled it off. Now, what I discovered is I enjoyed doing that, but I'm a human. I'm a people person. I need this day in and day out. Most coders that I know back then were not like me.
Right. Yeah, they're introverted. Yeah.
Yeah, a little not quite as extroverted as I am. So as much fun as I had doing it, I decided it wasn't for me long term. So I moved on to do different things. My point of sharing that part is you need to discover and experiment to be able to figure out if this is something for you. If is a new craft, is a new journey for you, do some research, experiment with it, talk with people who do it, get to meet coders and find out what their lifestyle is all about. You may find out there's enough of a blend today, because today we code in teams a lot.
Yeah.
It might be something worth experimenting with.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Susan, I told Randy that I was interviewing you for a permanent position. Do you want to have that conversation or not?
We'll talk.
We'll talk.
Okay.
We'll talk.
Wow. All right.
You know the benefits.
Like an offer right there on live stream. So.
Yeah. You know what the benefits are. You know what the pay is.
Pay is fabulous.
Well, we'll talk. At the very least, I'll have you come back as our full-time substitute co-host. How's that?
Thank
All right,
you.
I like it.
I'm convenient. I know. I'm convenient. So
Didn't say that.
I understand. No need to explain.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for filling in for Randy today. And
It was my pleasure.
appreciate it. Bobby, thank you very much for coming on today, buddy. I appreciate you.
Hey, thanks you, man. Thanks a lot. And had a lot of fun. And, wish you all well in the future.
Likewise, buddy. Likewise. So, all right, we are accomplishing ahead of schedule here, and I'm going to move on and tackle some other things, and you guys go off and have a rest of the fantastic. Oh, wait a minute. Next week. Oh, I almost forgot. Next week. Here we go. Almost forgot next week's guest star, Catherine Miller. Let me get it all in front of me here. Catherine Miller is going to join us. Catherine's with a company, has her own business called Notable Writing. And she's going to come in and she's going to help have a conversation about obliterating ageism.
Okay.
Obliterating ageism. And, for me, that's relevant. The rest of you, maybe it isn't, but So Catherine Miller is going to talk about how to navigate today's digital job search. Listen to these words, according to science.
Ah,
We really like this conversation, and Randy and I talked. So this is going to be a great chat. So show up next week, Wednesday, 11:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for lunch conversations with Randy and Teddy, and our special guest will be Catherine Miller from Notable Writing Studio. So it'll be a great conversation. So cool. All right, folks, have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
thanks.
Bye-bye.